Hello, this is Matthew from LoveBudi with another LoveCast. This is a weekly conversation about love, the topic of love. Here we go into the topic of love, how that applies to life or how that applies to theoretical situations or social studies and life in general. And daily, Monday through Saturday, we have what's called a daily love tips, and that goes into just a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes usually, discussion about how we can use love in our lives to have a better life, to have a happier life, to improve our lives, to deal with problems. So love tips are daily except for Sunday. So today we're going to take a few more minutes, maybe, I don't know how long, but a little bit longer than the daily discussion to talk about intellectual debates about God. Now, I was introduced by the internet this morning to a guy his name is Christopher Lang, and he's supposed to be the smartest guy in the United States. And the last videos I found of him being interviewed were 2019, and he's got his own idea about how the world works. I haven't spoken with him. I'd like to speak with him to get a little bit more information. He believes that people that are on the religious right, the extremists, are a little bit too strict in their specific dogma and beliefs, which I agree with that. And then he says the people that are staunch atheists are also not really on track. And I agree with that too. So I'd like to see where some of my ideas might be the same as his or might be different. I'd like to talk with him and find out. I'm sure there's some things I can learn. After all, he's the smartest guy in the world, or in the country anyway, maybe one of the smartest guys in the world. And he does approach some of these topics that I like to talk about, that I like to think about, that I like to consider myself. And that is, he says exactly what I say. What I want to do is help the world to become a better place, and however I could do that, whatever contribution that I can have. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I pretty much always worked on. So anyway, but is high IQ the answer? So this guy has a really high IQ. One of the things he talks about is eugenics. Some of the things conceptually, I think he wants to be the king of the world, and I think he believes he can be the king of the world because he's got such a high IQ. Now, he didn't say that. That's my interpretation of what he said. So I'll take that back if I'm totally wrong about that. But what I do want to say is that his application of the concepts, some of it is quite intellectual, and he talks about Einstein. Einstein is known for his research and his statements about physics, but actually Einstein was much more a philosopher than anything else. And I agree with that, and that's really great. But high IQ. So this is an intelligence quotient. Now, I've met people with IQs that are higher than mine. And there's a lot of people out there with high IQs. Not that mine is super low, but there are people with higher IQs than mine. My sister being one of them. And an interesting thing I have 3 sisters, and the eldest sister was living in her car, talking about how high her IQ. I said, what's your IQ? And she refused to share that. I guess, I don't know why, but I guess it means a lot to her. She went to school to be a teacher, and she loves reading, and she's really bright. And but at the same time, she has a hard time getting along with other people. Been through 1, 2, I don't know how many husbands, and has a hard time functioning in society. Nothing unusual about that with a person with a high IQ or a person who's, on the fringes or not your mainstream type of person, personality-wise. And she's definitely not that. And I love her to death. I mean, I just love her so much. And I just think she's really unique. I think she's really great. But she couldn't apply that IQ. She doesn't really, it doesn't seem like she's capable of applying that IQ to getting along with others. This guy I'm talking about, Christopher, with the highest IQ in the country, in the U.S., living on a farm doing farmhand stuff. The last I saw in the interview, he's trying to put together an organization. He's got an organization. He's got a 501c3, which is a nonprofit. He's doing that. And what he's trying to raise money. I just looked at his website. And they're trying to raise money, and everything's kind of at a standstill because they can't raise money. So having a high IQ doesn't necessarily mean that you can apply that to success in life. Now, I've met a lot of people with a lot of confidence and a lot of success. I've had friends very close to me that are literally predators. They find what they can take from you, and then they do things behind your back to steal things. They manipulate, and they have no self-awareness. They don't have the desire, or maybe not the ability so much, to look at themselves. It's one of the traits. Maybe we could have a million different personality traits. And when you have a personality trait, for whatever reason, whether you were born with that, whether you were made a decision to be that way, or your environment forced you to be that way, or a combination of these things, this can be kind of dangerous because these people end up messing up other people's lives. So if you have an IQ that's high, or you have a lot of confidence in yourself, it doesn't really matter, does it? These people with a high confidence in themselves, in other words, they can be super successful. So some of the people that I know that are basically narcissists, I don't know who's going to come to mind when I say that, but they can reach a really high level in government, and they usually do, or finances, because they believe they're entitled. And they're not love-centered, they're not love-based. It's all about their success. So they have this laser focus on what they want. And normally that's not altruistic. A narcissist could never be altruistic. They're mutually exclusive. People with high IQs aren't necessarily not narcissists, and they're not necessarily altruistic. There's not a direct connection, in other words, what I'm getting at is there's not a direct connection between intelligence and love. I prefer love. I guess I'd like to have a higher IQ. I guess that would be kind of cool. That would make me feel more proud of myself. Wow, look at me, I'm cool. But at the same time, maybe that intellectual power, I see these people going in circles. There's a debate. There's a friend of mine on Facebook. His name is Bill Flavel, Flavel. I forgot if it's one or two L's. He's an atheist. He proclaims his atheism, debates with believers of all kinds constantly. And what started me off on this topic for today was reading some of his threads and how people go around in circles. A lot of times, people are just insulting each other and trying to prove that God exists intellectually, or trying to prove that God doesn't exist intellectually, to me becomes circular. Because when you try to prove something, emotions really play a really big part, especially with believers. But then when you see people that are non-believers that claim to be atheists, a lot of times when they get prodded, when they get poked, they'll come out as becoming really emotional as well. And a lot of people can see that. And they become insulting, or they become arrogant, or they become rude. They're no longer being logical, and they use some very simple arguments. And I think when we look at love, if we look at love as our center, we're not going to be quibbling over religion. We're not going to be quibbling over dogma. We're not going to be quibbling over whether or not God exists. If love is your center, if love is your guide, it doesn't matter. Yeah, believe it or not. It doesn't matter if God exists or not. Because what you're going to do is you're going to do everything you can to be a loving person, to share the love, to teach the love, to learn the love, to have a love-centered life. Life is about love. And when you do that, it, pardon the word, trumps everything else that could possibly come up as a dogma, as a religion, as a philosophy, as a solution, or as an idea. Once you understand what love is and the application of love and how that works. Love is a common denominator. I haven't seen anybody say that compassion is not a good idea, that respect is not a good idea, that kindness is not a good idea, that nurturing is not a good thing. These qualities of love that we've defined here on the website LoveBudi.com, and this is a growing list all the time, where we find new aspects of love. People share with us ideas about what's an example of love, how can love be expressed. Love itself is what everything is made up of. Love is this vibration. And sometimes we get out of sync. We're out of vibration. We're out of harmony, literally, like musical notes that don't harmonize. We're out of harmony. We're out of vibration. We're out of sync and cooperation, working together smoothly with love. And once we get in sync, once we have love as our center, once we let go and we drop our dogma, we drop our pride, we drop whatever it is that is in the way, that anger, that frustration, then we become more in harmony with ourselves, our own body, our own life, the people in our lives, our job, people at work, our self-expression, who we are and what we're trying to do. Everything becomes much smoother. And to the degree that we can stay in harmony with love, then we automatically have a smoother life. Everything gets smoother because we refer to love. Well, what would love do? What would be the loving thing to do in this situation? What would be the compassionate, kind thing? And remember, not only to others, but also to ourselves, because love works both ways. Love works always in every direction. Being loving to yourself at the same time you're being loving to others. So love is not about martyrdom or self-sacrifice. It's about really knowing and practicing love, and that is being kind to yourself, taking care of yourself too, protecting yourself, nurturing yourself, loving yourself, having joy, having happiness, sharing that. So when we look at leadership, when we look at the way to go, when we look at what should we do, how should we decide what's the best political candidate, who should take the lead in this or that situation? My answer to that is all of us, any of us. If we're in touch with love, then that matters. Now I think that in general, people don't really get this idea, and so we have 100 million people, voting for a candidate that has nothing to do with love, has nothing to do with making the country a better place, has nothing to do with accepting and embracing and being respectful to human beings, has a lot more to do with kind of ideas about power, ideas about money, ideas that can be hateful, that can be like racism, separating people by race or nationality or religion or whatever. It's not about bringing people together. And love is this force that brings us together. Love is this force that attracts. Love is the attractive force. So you hear about the law of attraction. Well, this is the core of why and how that works. The law of attraction, it's at the core, it's love. And when you're in sync, when you're in harmony with that, things just go really, really well. And you don't have this thing where you have these intellectual debates expecting someone to win. Love is the great equalizer. We're all equal. We're all learning. We all have our own journey in this world, and we all have things to contribute, and we all have things to learn. So because of that, who's more fit? Who should we follow? Who's the boss? Love is the boss. That's what the answer is. It's not any single one of us. Every one of us has something to contribute at different times in different areas, in different situations. And if you're in tune with love, if you understand what love is, if you make a study of what love is, it all rings true. And then you know. It doesn't matter who says it. You know, a lot of times you see somebody say, I talked to a guy who's an Israeli guy once, and I said, oh, I read this article in Haaretz, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Haaretz, popular newspaper. And he said, I don't listen to anything they say, because that's a liberal. And he was an IDF soldier, retired. And I've seen people say that before. They'll completely discredit any piece of information based upon its source. But look at it this way. People that have kids, you know, kids say the darndest things, and sometimes kids say the most wise things. Any parent knows that, who has a young child who says the honest truth. And you're going to say, oh, because he's a kid, I'm going to discredit that? No. People realize that whether it's a liberal Israeli newspaper, whether it's a 3-year-old, or whether it's Einstein, there can be wisdom that comes from that source, and then there can be absolute baloney that comes from that source. But if you're in sync with love, you know, hey, does that work? Does that fit with the love model? Is that a nurturing thing? Is that a kind thing? Is that a respectful thing? Is that an empowering thing? And if it isn't, then maybe it's not so true no matter who says it. But if it is full of love, it doesn't matter who said it. Satan himself could come breaking out of the earth with pitchfork in hand, all aflame, horns glistening in the sunlight, make a statement, and if it's true, it's true. So this is the kind of simplistic tribalism people get caught in. And they say, oh, you know, I'm going to listen to the source, and everything that Bernie Sanders says is right, or everything that Hillary Clinton says is right, or, you know, pick your candidate. Some people believe that everything that Trump says is right. Well, it's not the case. Different people have different ideas. Okay, I'm not going to beat that idea into the ground. So we all should be followed. Now, when it comes to love, the objective is not for everybody to agree. It's not about everybody agreeing. It's not about everybody believing the same thing. It's not about enforcing your doctrine, enforcing your rules, enforcing your policy upon other people, where we have the king, the ruler, who's the most intellectual, or not only high IQ. It's not so much about IQ, but it's the ones who are the most tricky, the most manipulative, those who are most effective at getting themselves into a position of power by saying things that work for the common person, that doing things that work for the common, by keeping the certain secrets, by not having an open heart. Love has an open heart. Love has open arms, and love doesn't withhold. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't tell a half-truth. Love doesn't hold back the truth. Love volunteers information so people know who you are, and then they can make a decision. And that's okay if they make the wrong decision in your opinion. Just because you're being open, just because you're being honest, that could turn a lot of people off. A lot of people don't want to hear certain things. They want you to say things according to their agenda. And when you say controversial things, people can get upset because a lot of people, they don't understand love, right? We don't understand love. And they think, okay, that doesn't fit my agenda. I believe that this should be the case, and you're saying something in contrast to that. And they don't have this idea in their mind that, wow, that's a loving thing. That's a loving truth. That's a respectful, that's a kind, that's a true thing to say, even though it might be hard to hear. So the objective is not for everybody to participate and go, you know, marching off all in the same direction, in the same way, believing the same thing. The idea behind love is for people to participate, and that's what people are automatically doing. You can't really ask people or force people to participate. What I do is I share love. I share this idea of love. And people who are interested in it think it's really great, and I get comments all the time. People say, wow, that's really cool. I really agree with what you said about this, and I really appreciate that. And there are a lot of people who don't agree, who have different ideas. And I really appreciate what they have to say, because Love is open, and I try to be loving, and I try to be open. Wow, maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't understand. Maybe there's something I have yet to learn. I'm sure there's a lot of things I have yet to learn. Absolutely. And I think that we're all on this road to learning how to love more, and nobody's ahead of anybody else. That's my idea. It doesn't have to be yours, doesn't have to be anybody else's. But I enjoy sharing these ideas, and I do think that this idea about IQ being an important thing, when I was in school, I didn't see a lot of value in intellectual knowledge. I felt like even though people had fantastic, when I worked at Hewlett-Packard as a consultant, I was working next to people who had been to some of the best universities in the country. And some of these guys were like totally, really, really bright, and they could speak, and I couldn't understand what the hell is this guy talking about. But I had my place there. There was things that I could do, and I could contribute in my own way, because I thought in ways that they didn't think. And I'm one of those people who does not fit well in the corporate environment at all. I found the environment to be incredibly full of office politics, just nauseatingly political. But I was there, I think I was there consulting for about a year and a half before I left and went to get another project. And these guys were really, really smart, but that didn't necessarily mean, at the time I was working on a community project, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to contribute to humanity, that they were kind, that they were honest, that they were trying to be any of the love qualities that I knew. Maybe they were doing love in their own way. I don't know. I don't want to be judgmental like that. But I didn't see that necessarily IQ is what to focus on. I believe in the LQ, the love quotient. That's what I focus on for myself. And that's what I hope to be better at every day. And that's what I'm working on being better at every day, is my love quotient. How much do I understand love? How effective am I at loving? How loving can I be in my life? How many loving things do I do every day? Am I love-centered in my behavior? Am I always being humble and learning more? That's what matters to me, and that's where I focus. That's what I've centered my life on, is on love, not on IQ. And I think that if we do focus on IQ, there's a lot of value in having a really strong machine for a brain that can do calculations, that can do genius things. But I focus on the heart as the more important source of wisdom. Intelligence is one thing. Love that comes from wisdom is a whole other thing. That's my 2 cents. Thanks so much for listening. I hope your life is filled with love. Take a look at the comments here and some of the links if there's anything you're interested in. If you like this video, click the like, click the thumbs up. If you like love, if you like the LoveBudi ideas, subscribe. Thanks so much again for listening, for being there. My name's Matthew. I hope your life is filled with love. I love you. Have a wonderful day. Until next time, I'll say bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.